8:08 on this second day in March 2009. We'll check Wall Street activity as they start their work week. Tired of being intoxicated? Well, you can pay less to the Internal Revenue Service, do it legally, and be able to sleep at night. In her first book, the founder of America's largest tax resolution law firm reveals dozens of ways to keep your hard-earned money. Now, for nearly 2 decades, she's helped thousands of folks rake in thousands of dollars in tax savings, and now she explains how you can do it in her very first book, The Tax Lady's Guide to Beating the IRS and Saving Big Bucks on Your Taxes. A pleasure to welcome to the After 8 segment, Roni Deutch. Good morning, Roni.
Yeah, good morning, Andy. Thank you for that nice introduction. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure, because you're going to make our life simpler, right? Less complicated?
Yeah, I think the real cool thing about taxes, Andy, it's our common denominator as people. By the time we're dead, we don't really even know, right, unless we're dying together. So taxes and death, you know that is what we have in common. I wrote this book, as you said, so people can save money on their taxes legally and sleep better, which, again, you and I speaking on a Monday morning at 8, who wants to talk about sleep? We both do.
Well, let's start with the premise, and this is we're in the midst of a recession now. We want to hold on to as much of our money as we can, and the IRS has basically said they've come out and said, we feel your pain. We're going to be kinder and gentler. We're going to reach out to you folks. Do you find that to be true?
Yeah, unless you believe in the tax fairy people, you need to wake up. They are 100% not going to be kinder and gentler. And here's why, Andy. It's simple mathematics. They need $4 trillion to get our country out of the mess we are in. Where are they going to get the $4 trillion, Andy? You, me, and everybody who is listening. So even though Obama is standing up and he's, of course, preaching his platform, which was he's going to lower taxes for people making less than $250, raise them on the wealthy, the same issue still applies, Andy, and that is we've got a huge gap in revenue that the IRS needs. So you've got to be armed with some basic tax information so that you ultimately pay less money to the big bad wolf. That's the bottom line, guys.
Yeah, I guess in this age of computers and the internet, a lot of us rely on the tax programs to sort of do all that work for us. Should I just rely on the tax program to do my work?
Yeah, I'm glad you're asking that question. First of all, Andy, you got to find someone competent who knows all of the deductions that are available, who knows all of the credits that are available, who is also going to take a look at you and determine, are you a refund, check, addict, or are you the type of guy that doesn't get a refund on April 15th? There are so many variables other than just being a bean counter, right? Any tax program you get, Andy, you put some numbers in, you're going to get a return, it's going to go to the IRS. But I come back and say to you, why not spend a couple $100 and find out if you qualify for some of these new incredible tax credits, or find out if you're making huge mistakes by taking the standard deduction of $54.50 rather than itemizing, Andy. We're giving the IRS millions, hundreds of millions of dollars by not knowing the deductions, by not knowing the tax credits, by not having a basic understanding of tax law. So I respectfully disagree with you, Andy, and I say get your butt to a tax preparer. I've got 6 stores in Las Vegas, Andy. Of course I'm going to preach going to a professional. Plus I'm a tax attorney. So I don't know. I take a more intellectual approach to taxation because bottom line is the IRS wants money from you, Andy, and from me and from everybody else. Let's give them less.
Yeah, we're talking with Roni Deutch, the tax lady herself. Her book, her first book, The Tax Lady's Guide to Beating the IRS and Saving Big Bucks on Your Taxes, now in a bookstore near you. Roni, but when it comes to whether or not you take the standard deduction or itemizing, I think a lot of us are just afraid of when you begin the itemization process, all of a sudden red flags go up, and next thing you know, I've got a letter from the IRS in the mail. How valid or how realistic an expectation is that? Should we be worried about stuff like that?
Yeah, I love the way you think, Andy. I just love it. Millions of people are afraid of the IRS, and so their attitude is simply this. Hey, listen, as long as I get a refund check in April, that's all that matters. Even though, Andy, they may get $2,400 as a refund, they paid in $30,000. So did they really get a refund? No. Instead, they take the simple, safe way out, which is the standard deduction, because as you so eloquently stated, no one wants to save documents. No one wants to be organized. We'd rather spend more money on our abs. Let's have nice abs in an organized closet. And I say, forget it, fellas. You're leaving thousands of dollars on the table by not being organized with your taxes. But again, Andy, it takes changing the way you approach taxes. And the first thing you have to do is say, all right, there is no tax fairy, so I've got to take care of myself so I can find more money today to pay my bills. I mean, look what's going on in Vegas. Look what's going on in California, Florida, Ohio. We are screwed right now when you think of states that are suffering. So again, stop living safely. Stop thinking that the IRS is just there to take your money when you really can. By itemizing, by looking at deductions, you can save a lot more money.
Now, you say in your book that the average person probably overpays their taxes by $2,000. How do you get to that number?
Yeah, we know that with certainty, Andy, because here's why. It's simple math. If you and I took 1 million tax returns and we looked at just 2 line items, just 2, did they take a charitable donation and or did they take the home business deduction? We find that people that do make charitable deductions, and there are good people out there that are not only giving money but giving appreciated value items, they're not even claiming the fair market value of the deduction, number one. Number two, they're not even getting receipts. So we've calculated that people are absolutely leaving $2,000 on the table. Number one, they're claiming the wrong numbers because number two, most importantly, they're lazy. They don't have a box that they throw the receipts in, so it takes us right back to that standard deduction nightmare. Or as you and I know, the refund check addiction. Just think for a moment, refund checks. People, 70% of all people out there get a refund check for $2,400 to $2,500. Why are you giving an interest-free loan to the IRS? Why in the world are you not getting your money every month? Did you know that if you adjusted your W-4 at your boss's place of business, you'd get another $200 to $300 a month by making the adjustment? It's simple math. You and I can add it up, and you would be disgusted to see how much money people are laying on the table.
Now, you mentioned just a couple of deductions that we don't keep proper documentation on. Are those the two most overlooked deductions when it comes to taxpayers?
Yeah, when you and I step back and say, Ronnie, where are people screwing up? It's charitable deductions, not keeping receipts, not claiming the full amount of the deduction, home business deduction. They're not even taking the home business deduction. Number three, are you ready for another one? Job hunting expenses. Did you know right now what's the unemployment rate? It's going to be 12% nationwide by the end of this year. People are looking for jobs. Did you know they can deduct the expenses associated for looking for jobs? Of course not. People don't know that. What about medical bills? How many fine people who live in Las Vegas do not have medical insurance? Well, why aren't they deducting whatever they spend on their medical bills? Again, I'm just naming a couple, Andy, but there are literally hundreds of deductions that you and I can say, whoa. Now, that's starting to add up. That's starting to bother me. Plus, there's all these great new tax credits. You're aware of the stimulus. You're aware of what Obama wants to do. Everybody out there is going to get $400 less taken out of their paycheck by the IRS, $800 if you're married. Also, what about the $8,000 free money tax credit if you want to buy a new home? Let's face it, in Las Vegas, the deals are plentiful, as is in California. So.
Right.
A little bit of knowledge, which is what the book is doing, can save people thousands and thousands of dollars.
Now, you mentioned literally hundreds of tax deductions, and when I hear hundreds of deductions, I'm thinking to myself, okay, the other conversation that constantly comes up around tax time for at least a little while is the idea of tax simplification, and it seems like things are just getting, I know, it just seems like things are getting much more complex, not simplified.
Oh, that is so funny. That certainly doesn't go together. There are over 65,000 pages in the tax code. Do you realize that there are 3 million words in the tax code? When you and I think of the word simple, we think math. 1 plus 1, 2 plus 2. The IRS, unfortunately, is in business to keep taxes confusing. As long as you're scared and your listeners are scared and people are intimidated, the IRS can bully you around and push you around and take more money from you than you should be paying. Legally, you don't have to be paying that much money if you just had some knowledge. So yes, Andy, it is a vicious tsunami cycle where you, the taxpayer, are the one ultimately paying the bill for how complex and complicated our tax codes really are.